Hey guys, welcome back to Tap the Brakes. I am Mickye Castillo, and I hope you are loving this journey so far. Hit the like, subscribe, and share, and let's get into this. So today's episode is number 15, and we're going to be starting in Exodus chapter 33. But remember last week we left off with the whole golden calf incident? You remember what happened with that? Remember Moses went up on the mountain to receive the 10 commandments, was only gone for 40 days, and the people went crazy. And they told Aaron, "We know not what has happened to our leader, and make us an image and an idol to be worshipped." And so Aaron was like, "Well, give me all the gold you have." And they did, and he put it into the fire and created a golden calf. And they began to worship this calf and saying that this is our God. This is the God that brought us out of Egypt. And this is the God that fed us with quail and manna and fresh water to drink. And, a lot of sources say that, yes, they were worshiping this image and calling it the Lord. But worse than that, they were having orgies at the base of this image and playing music and shouting and dancing and a wicked display, saying that this was their God, this was the Lord, and worshiping the Lord like this. And so when Moses come down from the mountain, and he dropped the 10 commandments, and he was appalled, and God was angry and said to Moses, "Let me just kill them. Let me just kill them all right here, right now." And remember, Moses was like, "God, don't kill him." He said, "I could just start over with you." And he was like, "Don't kill him, because then the people in Egypt will say, yeah, their God come and got them and brought them up out of Egypt, only to take them this far and kill them himself because they were so wicked and evil, or began to do the practices that were so wicked and evil." Anyways, God relented and said, okay, but he was still not over this. Remember, he told Moses to tell him, "Raise your hand, whoever is on the Lord's side," or maybe those who didn't participate in it. And the Israelites raised their hand and said, "I'm on the Lord's side." And the Lord said, "Take a sword in your hand and go kill all those who participated in this." And remember, 3,000 people were slaughtered that day, those who participated in this. But a hard lesson was learned to the Israelites. You cannot serve the Lord the way that the pagans serve their God and say that it's me. This is not me. Don't get it twisted, right? So anyways, the Levites were singled out and separated unto the Lord that day because they stood up for such a holy and a righteous thing and done away with such wickedness in their camp. So the Lord pulled the tribe of Levi unto himself that day. So we're going to continue, but God is still pretty upset with his people because of this. Check this out. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Leave here, you and the people you brought up from the land of Egypt, and go to the land that I have promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give this land to your offspring, and I will set an angel before you to drive out the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Go up to a land flowing with milk and honey. But I will not go with you, for you are a stiff-necked people." Wow! "Otherwise, I might destroy you on the way." When the people heard this bad news, they mourned, and they did not put on their jewelry. For the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites, you are a stiff-necked people. If I went with you for a single moment, I would destroy you. Now take off your jewelry, and I will decide what to do with you." So the Israelites remained stripped of their jewelry from Mount Horeb and onward. I guess, when they put on their jewelry and their garments and all this stuff, it was an act of celebration and joyfulness. And God was like, "No, we're not celebrating. We ain't joyful. Take it off. Take it off. We're not doing that." He was angry with them. Then it goes on to says, "Now Moses took the tent and set it up outside the camp, far away from the camp, and called it the tent of meeting. And anyone who wanted to consult the Lord would go to the tent outside of the camp. Whenever Moses went up to the tent, all the people would stand up, each one at the door of his tent, and they would watch Moses until he entered that tent. And Moses entered the tent, and the pillar of cloud would come down and remain at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. And all the people saw the pillar of the cloud remaining at the entrance of the tent. They would stand up, then bow down to worship, each one at the door of his own tent. The Lord spoke with Moses face to face, just as a man speaks with his friend. Then Moses would return to the camp, but his assistant, the young man Joshua, the son of Nun, would not leave the inside of the tent. So this is where you're going to see more of this character named Joshua. You see, he's being groomed to be the next commander-in-chief after Moses is gone. Yeah. So verse 12. Moses said to the Lord, "See, you say to me, bring up this people, but you have not let me know who you will send with me." Because remember, the Lord said, I'm going to send an angel with you. Yet you have said, I know you by name, and you have found favor in my sight. Now therefore, if I have found favor in your sight, please show me your ways, that I may know you in order to find favor in your sight. Consider too that this nation is your people, he said. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. And he said to him, if your presence will not go with me, and do not bring us up from here, for how shall it be known that I have found favor in your sight, I and your people? Moses is telling him, look, you said you would go with us. You said you would bring us out. Now, if you're not going to go with us, then how do I know, and how does your people know that we actually do have favor in your sight? If you're not going to go with us, is it not in your going with us so that we are distinct? Like that's how we're distinct, is because you're with us. I and your people from every other people on the face of the earth. And the Lord said to Moses, this very thing that you have spoken I will do, for you have found favor in my sight, and I know you by name. Moses said, please show me your glory. And he said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you my name, the Lord. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy to whom I will show mercy. But he said, you cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live. And the Lord said, behold, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock. And while my glory passes by, I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I pass by. Then I will make a way. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face you shall not see. Wow. You see, this is kind of a type and shadow, because the Lord has definitely placed us in the cleft of the rock of Jesus Christ. Like he did Moses, and as long as we are in that rock, then we too will see the goodness of God. His mercy, his loving kindness, his long suffering. When we are in that cleft, that safe place in Jesus, then we do get to understand who God really is. That's awesome, huh? Chapter 34. So this is the second attempt to receive the 10 commandments, because remember the first ones got broke. Remember Moses was angry and he dropped the 10 commandments when he saw what the people were doing at the base of this golden calf. Chapter 34, verse 1, it says, the Lord said to Moses, cut 2 tablets of stone like the first, and I will write upon these tablets the words that were written on the first tablets, which you broke. So the Lord said to Moses, come up alone, no one with him, no animals are to feed at the base of the mountain at this time that he's on the mountain, right? So chapter 34, verse 4. So Moses cut 2 tablets of stone like the first. He arose up early in the morning and went up to Mount Sinai, and as the Lord had commanded him, and took in his hands 2 tablets of stone. And the Lord descended in the cloud and stood with him there, and proclaimed the name of the Lord. And the Lord passed by before him and proclaimed, the Lord, the God of merciful and gracious, the God of mercy and gracious, slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness and truth, keeping mercy and loving kindness for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sins, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and the children's children to the 3rd and the 4th generations. Thank God that's over. And Moses made haste to bow his head towards the earth, and he worshipped. And he said, if now I have found favor and loving kindness in your sight, O Lord, let the Lord, I pray you, go in the midst of us. Although it is a stiff-necked people, and pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for your inheritance. And the Lord said, Behold, I laid down a covenant. Before all your people, I will do marvels, wonders, and miracles, such have not been wrought or created in all the earth and in any nation, and all the people among whom you shall see the work of the Lord, for it is a terrible thing that I will do for you. Observe what I command you this day. Behold, I will drive out before you the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Okay. So tap the brakes. The Lord is saying, let's start anew. The Lord will do this for them. God is telling Moses right here, right now, that he will fight for them as long as, guys, this is key, as long as they keep his commandments. There were stipulations to this thing, y'all. God is telling Moses that he will do all this thing, but like I said before, there were the ifs. Then God will protect, and the commandments that God's laying down. But you'll see. Let's continue. Verse 12. Take heed to yourself, lest you make a covenant or a mutual agreement with the inhabitants of the land to which you go, lest it becomes a snare in the midst of you. But you shall destroy their altars, dash in pieces their pillars, their obelisks, images, and cut down their asherims, which is their symbols of the goddess Asherah. For you shall worship no other god, for the Lord, whose name is jealous over you. I'm a jealous God, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land. When they play the harlot after their gods and sacrifice to their gods, one invites you to eat of the food of the sacrifice to the idols, and you take of their daughters for your sons, and their daughters play the harlot after their gods, and make your sons play the harlot after their gods. You shall make for yourselves no molten images or gods. The feast of unleavened bread you shall keep 7 days. You shall eat unleavened bread, as I have commanded you, in the time of the month of Abib. For in the month of Abib you came out of Egypt, and the males that are first to open the womb among your livestock are mine, whether it is ox or sheep. But the firstlings of the donkey, which is unclean beast, you shall redeem with a lamb or a kid. Okay? And if you do not redeem it, then you shall break its neck, meaning you shall kill it, because you're not going to make any money off of an unclean animal kind of thing. That's from what I understand. So if you're not going to redeem it, then kill it, because you're not going to make any money off of this unclean beast. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and none of you shall appear before me empty-handed. So you see, the Lord is continuing to teach them how to come before him. But to be honest, if we think about it, we have seen this kind of a sacrifice before. How to come before the Lord. If we go way back in the book of Genesis, remember when Adam and Eve sinned? What did God do? What did God show them would cover their sins? Remember, God sacrificed the innocent lamb, or the innocent animal. And he placed the skins over Adam and Eve's nakedness to cover their nakedness. And then he sent them away. So God showed them this kind of sacrifice before of a clean animal. And again, he's telling Moses this, but we saw this unfold even way back in the book of Genesis. Way back there. Anyways, you see here how the Lord is showing Moses the proper way to come before the Lord, and that Moses is to teach the people. And the Lord went on to tell Moses to rest on the Sabbath and to make sure that they celebrate the feast days, and that three times a year they are to come with the sacrifice before the Lord, and that they are to do all that the Lord has commanded them to do. Then he would, look at this, verse 24, for I will cast out the nations before you and enlarge your borders. Neither shall any man desire your land when you go up and appear before the Lord your God 3 times a year. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leaven, neither shall the sacrifice of the feast of the Passover be left over until morning. The first of the first fruits of your ground shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. So the first fruits of the ground bring to the house of the Lord. You shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. And the Lord said to Moses, write these words, for after the purpose and the character of these words I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. Moses was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He neither ate or drank anything. And he wrote upon the tablets the words of the covenant and the 10 commandments. Then Moses came down from the Mount Sinai with the tablets of the testimony in his hand. And he did not know that the skin of his face was shining, and it sent forth beams by reason of him speaking with the Lord. So verse 30, Aaron and all the people of Israel saw Moses, and behold, the skin of his face was shining, and they were afraid to come near him. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the leaders of the congregation returned to him, and Moses talked with them. Afterward, all the people of Israel came near, and he commanded them all that the Lord has spoken with him in Mount Sinai. And when Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face. Whenever Moses went before the Lord to speak with him, he would remove the veil until he came out. And when he came out and told the people of Israel what the Lord had commanded, the people of Israel would see the face of Moses, and the skin on his face was shining. And Moses would put the veil over his face again until he went in to speak with him. Wow, Wubsy. Can you imagine seeing this? Man. So Moses went before the people and told them all that the Lord had shown him concerning, number 1, no one was to do any kind of work on the Sabbath day. That day was to remain holy and set apart for the Lord and for his glory, and do not work on that day. He made this very clear that if anyone found working or doing any kind of work on the Sabbath day would be put to death. Therefore, they were very clear, and they understood that if you do this, the penalty is death. So, again, if they did it, it was just in flat out rebellion to what God was saying. They knew better. So, without understanding how many times the Lord reiterated all of this, then you don't really understand it if you read it out of context and see that later someone does die for going out and cutting wood on the Sabbath day. And if somebody was just to read that, I've had this said to me, God is mean. He killed somebody for picking up some sticks on the Sabbath day. Yes, he did. But without the understanding of all these chapters going before, you are not to ever do that. Don't disrespect this day. They knew better. It was in flat out rebellion against that which the Lord spoke, that if they did it, they would die. They knew this. So, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to say that because if you take it out of context, it does seem that it's just mean and cruel. But, I guess people thought back then that if they worked on the Sabbath day, that rules don't apply to me. I can do whatever I want to do. I don't care what the Lord says, because that's basically what they did when they went out and worked. Okay, done with that little rant. Okay, so Moses also told them to bring forth all kinds of offerings to the tent of meetings for the instruments and to set it up. And this is where you're going to see where the tabernacle was built and what all went into the tabernacle. And this is a place of holy communion before the Lord. The people were moved by the Spirit of the Lord to bring all of this stuff to Moses for the tabernacle. So verse 20 of chapter 35, then all the congregation of the Israelites left Moses' presence, and they came, each one whose heart stirred him up, whose spirit made him willing, and brought the Lord's offering to be used for the tent of meeting, and for all its services. and the holy garments. And they came both men and women, all who were willing-hearted, and brought brooches and earrings and nose rings and signet rings and amulets and necklaces and jewelry and gold, and bringing offerings of gold to the Lord. And everyone whom was found blue or purple or scarlet or fine linen or goat's hair or ram skin made of red or dolphin or porpoise skins brought them. Everyone who could make an offering of silver or bronze brought it to the Lord as an offering. All the women who had the ability and were wise-hearted spun with their hands and brought what they had, spun with blue and purple and scarlet and fine linen. And all the women who had the ability and whose hearts stirred them up in wisdom spun the goat's hair. The leaders brought onyx stones and stones that were set for the ephod and the breastplates, and spices and oils for the light and for the anointing oil and for the fragrance of incense. And the Israelites brought a freewill offering to the Lord, all men and women whose hearts made them willing and moved them to bring everything for the work of the Lord had commanded Moses to be done. So it's saying over and over again, all those who were willing, all those who were wanted to bring this offering to the Lord brought it in abundance over and over and over and over again. And the Lord also made them willing to do this too, to give to him joyfully. I think that's awesome. And Moses said to the Israelites, see, the Lord called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur. Remember Hur? He was the one, remember when Moses was up on top of the mountain, and as long as his hands were lifted, you had Aaron on one side and Hur on the other, lifting up his hands. So the son of Hur, the grandson of Hur, Bezalel, of the tribe of Judah. And he has filled him with the Spirit of God, with the ability of wisdom and intelligence and understanding, and with knowledge and all craftsmanship, to devise artistic design, to work in gold and silver and bronze, and cutting of stones for setting, and in carving of wood, for work in every skilled craft. And God has put in Bezalel's heart that he may teach both he and Aholabab, son of, I can't say this name, I'm going to try though, Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan. He has filled them with wisdom of heart and ability to do all manner of craftsmanship of the engraver, of the skillful workman, of the embroiderer in blue and purple and scarlet and in fine linen, and of the weaver, even of those who do or design any skilled work. Wow. So you can see the Lord is moving upon the hearts of the people, and all those who are willing and those who brought forth everything that was needed in the tabernacle. God moved upon their hearts. And the Lord imparted the wisdom and the skill and the craftsmanship into building all of these things. So where did they get so much gold and silver and fine linen and all of this stuff? Well, remember when they came out of Egypt? God told the children of Israel, okay, so guys, if there was 600,000 men, not including the women and children, then how many was that really? Like millions? 1 million? 2 million? I don't know. That's a lot. I think I do go over that in one of my episodes, but I forgot. But that's a lot. So they went to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians gave them all of this stuff. So they had all of this stuff in abundance to bring now to set up the Lord's house. So chapter 36, Bezalel and Aholabab, and every wise-hearted man in whom the Lord had put wisdom and understanding to know how to do all the work for the service of the sanctuary, shall work according to all that the Lord has commanded. And Moses called Bezalel and Aholabab and every able, wise-hearted man in whose mind the Lord had put wisdom and ability, and everyone's whose heart stirred him up to come and do this work. And they said to Moses, the people bring much more than enough to do all the work that the Lord has commanded. So Moses commanded it, and it was proclaimed in all the camp, let the men and the women stop bringing all the stuff. I'm going to paraphrase here. Let the men and the women stop bringing all the stuff, because now we have more than enough to do the Lord's work here. It is sufficient. So the work started. Next, it breaks down how it was made and the instruments that were given in great detail, and all the work began. So in chapters 37, 38, and 39 outlines in great detail how all of this was constructed, not only from the instruments for the tabernacle, but the garments and the linens and the breastplates of the priest and all that. And I would encourage you to read it. I mean, some people might be bored with that. I'm not going to go over it here in today's episode, but you can read it. It's really pretty cool. There's just the detail that was in all of this. Exodus 39 and 42 and 43 says, according to all that the Lord has commanded Moses, so that the Israelites had done all the work. And Moses inspected all the work, and behold, they had done it. And the Lord had commanded, so had they done it. And Moses blessed them. Chapter 40, and the Lord said to Moses, you are to set up the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, on the first day of the first month. Put the ark of the testimony there and screen off the ark with the veil. Remember the veil in the temple? We're going to go over that later. But the Lord tells Moses where to place what instruments inside the tabernacle. And he tells Moses to anoint everything in the tabernacle, and then to bring Aaron and the priest in for anointing. So as you can see on your screen, the tabernacle and all the instruments and where to set them up, what to put in the outer court and the inner court, and then the most holy of holies, and how to section it off and everything. It's really, really beautiful. And God just imparted all of this understanding and this wisdom into his people, those that were willing. See, that's the key. Those that were willing to come to the Lord with a willing heart and a right spirit. God imparted this wisdom and understanding into them to know how to do this. I think that's awesome. Verse 12. Then bring Aaron and his sons to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and wash them with water. Clothe Aaron with the holy garments, and anoint him, and consecrate him, so that he can serve me as priest. Have his sons come forward, and clothe them in tunics. Anoint them just as you anointed their father, so that they may also serve me as priest. Their anointing will serve to inaugurate a permanent priesthood for them throughout their generations. Wow. So Moses set up the tabernacle exactly like the Lord told him, everything in its place, and how the priests are to be anointed. And now everything is set. Chapter 40 ends with this. The cloud covered the tent of meeting. The glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses was unable to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud rested on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. The Israelites set out whenever the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle throughout all the stages of the journey. So as long as the cloud was over the tabernacle, they camped out. Everybody stayed in place. This is where we're going to dwell for a while. But whenever this cloud or the fire was lifted, they knew that it was time to pack everything up and continue their journey towards the promised land. If the cloud was not taken up, they did not set out until the day it was taken up. For the cloud of the Lord was over the tabernacle by day, and there was a fire inside the cloud by night, visible to the entire house of Israel throughout all the stages of their journey, right? As you can see with this book, how the Lord came and delivered his people from Egypt, provided water, quail, and manna. He also told them as long as they trusted in him, they would not be sick, they would not miscarry a child, even their shoes would not be worn out. God showed them and imparted insight and wisdom and all craftsmanship to build the tabernacle and all the instruments according to the pattern in heaven. And he gave them a taste of his wrath and his judgment with this whole golden calf thingy. So the fear of the Lord was understood as well. So again, Joshua, he's going to play a key role as we continue to unpack, because he is the next commander-in-chief. So this concludes the book of Exodus, but we're not done, because you know what's next. Pop quiz. Now you know. Okay, let me just say, maybe you don't know. You don't know. This is more than a pop quiz today. It's a final exam. See, when we do our in-home Bible study and there's people here, we call this our semester exam. So this is going to be a long pop quiz today, but guys, just try it. You've probably learned so much more than you think you've learned if you've watched these episodes in order. So just take this final exam. If you need to pause it, okay, I'm just going to tell you. There's like 125 questions today. Don't stone me. But take it in parts. Do like 10 questions now, 10 questions tomorrow, whatever. You might be surprised what you've learned with all of this. So are you ready? You want to get started? All right, let's do our final exam to close out the book of Genesis and Exodus. We're going to combine them. Ready? With the questions. All right. Number 1. Adam and Eve had how many sons and what were their names? Cain, Abel, and Seth. Number 2, in Hebrew, what do their names mean? Do you remember? Well, Cain means acquired, Abel means breath, and Seth means substitute or replacement. Number 3, of the above mentioned sons, who killed who? You know that. Cain killed Abel. Number 4, Cain's lineage became known as the Kenites. So when Cain was banished, he traveled and went to the land of Nod. Number 6, Cain's son was named Enoch. Remember? Cain had a son named Enoch, later known as Enoch the evil. Seth had a son named Enoch, that later was Enoch the righteous, that wrote the first book of Enoch. Number 7, Genesis 6 talks about the sons of God doing what? Or the angels of God doing what? Having sex with the daughters of men. And number 8, what are the Nephilim? Well, the offspring of these fallen angels and the daughters of man. Yeah, number 9. Why was Noah chosen to build an ark? Because he was pure. The Bible says he was righteous or pure, meaning pure blood lineage. We went through that. Number 10. God told Noah to bring how many clean and unclean animals into the ark? How many pairs? 7 pairs of clean and 2 pairs of unclean. Number 11. Why did God send the flood? Well, it said because all flesh had become evil and wicked. 12. Who are Noah's sons? Shem, Japheth, and Ham. Number 13. So of Adam's son, Jesus came through what lineage? What son? Seth. Number 14. Jesus came through what son of the sons of Noah? Shem. Number 15. Which son violated Noah's wife? Which sons of Ham? Remember he had the 3. Which son violated his wife? Ham. Number 16. What was the name of that? What was the name or the child from that violation? Remember? Canaan. And they became known as the Canaanites. Number 18. Canaan had 2 sons. What were their names? Sidon and Heth. Yeah, and then from there you get all the Jebusites and the Dissonites and all the ites and ites, and they settled out in all the communities and all this stuff. Anyways, number 19. Who was Abraham's father? What was his name? Tara. Number 20. What's Abraham's first wife's name? Sarah or Sarai. 21. How old was Abraham when he was circumcised? 99. Number 22. What is Abraham and Sarah's son's name? Abraham and Sarah's son. Isaac. 23. Sarah's handmaiden, who became Abraham's second wife, was named Hagar. 24. What was her son's name with Abraham? Ishmael. 25. What did God say would come from Abraham? A great nation and kings. Remember? 26. How long did God say Abraham's descendants would be in captivity? 430 years. 27. And once they were out of captivity, where were they going to? The land of Canaan. 28. Lot settles in the land of Lot. You remember Abraham's nephew? Sodom. 29. What was Lot's two sons' name? Both of them. Remember, his daughters raped him, and one had a son named Moab, and the other one had a son named Ammon. Number 30. Those two sons became known as the Moabites and the Ammonites. You know this. And then Moloch and Chemosh were the pagan gods worshipped by the Moabites and the Ammonites. 32. Isaac's wife was named Rebekah. 33. Her two sons were Esau and Jacob. 34. Who became the blanks and the blanks? Esau and Jacob's people became known as the Edomites and the Israelites. Remember, Jacob's name got changed to Israel? 35. Abraham's third wife. Remember her name? Keturah. 36. Abraham dies at what age? 175. 37. What did Esau give to Jacob when he was hungry? Esau gave to Jacob his birthright. But Isaac, remember their daddy, was tricked into giving Jacob what? The blessing. 39. Esau married how many Canaanite wives? I know that part was confusing, but I think we settled on 3. 3 Canaanite wives. But which one was Ishmael's daughter? Remember Ishmael from Hagar? Bashemath. 41. Can you name Jacob's 2 wives and her 2 handmaidens? And their 2 handmaidens? Okay, so you had Leah and Zilpah, and then you had Rachel and Bilhah. 42. How long did Jacob work for them? 14 years combined to work for the wives. I think he stayed, remember, with Laban for like 20 years, then they bounced. But he worked for the 2 wives for 14 years combined. 43. What did Reuben pick out of the field that Rachel wanted so desperately? Remember, and you have to say it like this. The love apples. 44. How many sons and daughters did Jacob have? Remember, he had 12 sons and 1 daughter. Can you name any of them? Let's do it. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Gad, Asher, Dan, Naphtali, Joseph, and Benjamin. And the daughter's name was Dinah. 45. Who wrestled with Jacob all night long? Well, either it was God or an angel. Remember? Kept going back, the angel, but yet it was God. 46. Jacob's name was changed. Ooh, I already gave this one away. Jacob's name was changed to what? Israel. 47. Ancient names for Jerusalem. Salem, Jebus, or Shalem. All right, 48. The Hittite chief Jacob bought land from in Jerusalem was Hamor. But who raped Dinah? Shechem. Remember? Shechem. What did Levi and Simeon do because of this rape of their sister? Well, they killed all the men of the town once they convinced them to get circumcised, remember? 51. Rachel died when she gave birth to what son? Benjamin. 52. Did I say 51? Okay, 52. Who lived among Esau, and Esau married into what family? You know this. Seor the Horite. Remember Seor? 53. Israel/Jacob loved what son and what wife the most? He showed favoritism to them. Remember, he loved Joseph the most and made him the coat of many colors. And his mother was Rachel. 54. Who wanted to kill Joseph? His brothers. 55. Where did Joseph end up after getting sold by his brothers? Well, he ended up in Egypt. 56. Jesus came through the lineage of which son of Jacob? Remember the 12 sons? Which one did Jesus come through? Judah, the lion of the tribe of Judah. 57. Judah and Tamar had 2 sons. Remember that little fiasco? Tamar, his quote, daughter-in-law? Anyway, Judah and Tamar had 2 sons. What were their names? Remember she had twins? Perez and Zerah. Which son did Jesus come through out of those twins? Perez. 59. The first house Joseph found favor in and was placed over all the affairs of the house was where? Potiphar's house. 60. Potiphar's wife claimed that Joseph did what? Well, she says he tried to rape her. We know that's a lie. 61. Joseph explained 2 dreams to 2 people in prison. Do you remember who those 2 people were? The baker and the butler. 62. The second place Joseph found favor and was in charge over all the affairs was in prison. 63. How did Joseph find favor with Pharaoh? Remember, to get out of prison? Explaining his dreams. 64. The third place Joseph found favor and was in charge and became second in command only to who? The Pharaoh. 65. Joseph's wife was Asenath. 66. Joseph's 2 sons were named Ephraim and Manasseh. 67. Joseph's only blood brother was... there was 12 of them, but he had the same mother and father with one brother. Who was that? Benjamin. By what mother? Rachel. 68. Joseph and all his brothers and that generation dies where? In Egypt. 69. This is 2 parts. Why did Pharaoh take the Hebrews as slaves? Well, number 1, because there arose a king or a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph and how favored he was. And number 2, because the Israelites had grown and grown and grown and grown, and now they were a threat to the Pharaoh, he thought. 70. When released from Egypt, they would take over what land? The land of Canaan, from the great river Egypt to the river Euphrates. 71. Pharaoh drowned all the male babies in what river? The Nile. 72. Moses was raised by Pharaoh's daughter. 73. Moses' name means drawn out. 74. Why did Moses run away from Egypt? Well, because he killed an Egyptian and Pharaoh wanted to kill him. 75. Where did Moses eventually end up? Midian. 76. Who did Moses marry? Zipporah. 77. What was Moses' father-in-law's name? Jethro. 78. How many children did Moses have? 2. 79. Why did God want to kill Moses? Because evidently he didn't circumcise the first one. Remember that? Number 80. Why was Moses doubting or fearful to be used as God's mouthpiece? Because evidently he had a speech impediment. 81. Who did God allow to be Moses' sidekick and mouthpiece? His brother Aaron. 82. From what tribe was Moses and Aaron from? The tribe of Levi. 83. God reveals his name to Moses as Jehovah, or some translations say Yahweh. 84. The first sign or miracle performed in front of Pharaoh was Aaron's rod turning into a dragon. Yeah. 85. Many believe the serpent was worn on the heads of the Pharaoh to represent divine serpentine knowledge, and the goddess Wadjet, however you say that. 86. Who hardened Pharaoh's heart and why? Well, God did, to show forth his signs and wonders to all of Egypt and to all of Israel. 87. The 10 plagues represented what to the Egyptians? Their 10 main deities or gods. What plague did not affect the land of Goshen? Remember, it was the 4th plague, and that was the gadfly. 89. What was used to symbolize the protection of God in the land of Goshen on that last plague? Remember, it was the blood on the doorpost represented the protection of God from the death angel in killing the firstborn. 90. Can you name all 10 plagues? Can you name any of them? Okay, so we have water to blood, frogs, lice, flies, disease on the cattle, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and finally the death angel. 91. The 9th plague, which was darkness, was against what god of Egypt? And guys, this is big. We talk about this god or deity a lot. Ra, the sun god. All right, 92. What did the Israelites take from the Egyptians when they left? Jewels and silver and gold and linens and clothes and fabrics. 93. How many Israelites fled from Egypt? Well, it said 600,000 men, not including the women and children. So it could have been, gosh, well over 1 million, 2 million. I do address this in one of my episodes coming up. I just forget now. But anyways, let's just say 600,000 men, not including women and children. That's the correct answer. 94. God told them to keep what feast or festivals every year? For sure, the Passover. 95. Why was it called that? Why was it called the Passover? Because the death angel, remember, passed over. Excuse me, the death angel passed over their homes that night. Passed over. Passover. 96. Who or what did God tell them to set aside for him? Remember, the firstborn of every man and animal. The firstborn of every man was to be set aside for him, to be the priest of the home, to be the next ruler, the next one in command, the one to receive the blessing and the birthright, and all this stuff. The priest of the home. Okay, and then the firstborn of the animals was to be set aside for the sacrifice. Okay, 97. What did not depart from the Israelites as they departed from Egypt? The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. 98. When they fled, where did God tell Moses to stop? Remember for the last showdown? At the base of Baal Zephon, the base of the mountain. Can you name this last god for this last showdown? Remember him? Typhon the Destroyer, or better known as Typhoon. Question 100. When they saw Pharaoh's army, what did Moses tell them? Remember? He told them, stand still and fear not, and see the salvation of the Lord. 101. What did Pharaoh's army say when they were in the midst of the water? He said, the Lord fights for them. 102. How many days' journey did Moses take them into the wilderness? 3. What miracle did the Lord do for them after complaining of hunger? Well, he provided manna and quail. What does manna mean? It means, what is it? Question 105. In Exodus chapter 14, verse 13, the word salvation in this context means what? Remember, I just said Moses told them, stand still, fear not, and see the salvation of the Lord. What does the word salvation mean? Remember? It means deliverance or victory. 106. In the Song of Victory in Exodus chapter 15, it says the Lord is a man of war. 107. The Lord told them to keep the Sabbath. Why? That ye will know that I am the Lord that does sanctify you, and to acknowledge the day that the Lord, that God made the heavens and the earth, and then he rested on the 7th day of creation. 108. When the people left Egypt and traveled to the wilderness, what was the name of that wilderness? Sin, S-I-N. 109. What did Moses do in order to get the water from the rock? Remember? He struck it. You got to say it with a southern drawl. He struck it. Excuse me, 110. Who was Moses afraid of that would stone him? Remember that? His own people. 111. Who came to fight against the Israelites when they first come out of Egypt? Remember the Amalekites. Who were the Amalekites descended from? Y'all know this if y'all been watching them in order. Excuse me, I got a little cough. Esau. 113. As long as Moses did what, they would win the battle. Remember, as long as Moses kept his hands raised, then the Israelites won against this battle. And when Moses would drop his hands, then the Amalekites would win. They won the battle, remember? Aaron and Hur was on each side of Moses that lifted up his arms. So the Lord built an altar that day when they won. Do you know what Moses called that altar? The Lord is my banner. Question 115. What did Jethro tell Moses concerning the people and all those elders? Remember that he needed to pick trustworthy people and put over the thousands and the hundreds and the 50s and the 10s to be judges over the people. Moses had his hands way too full. 116. What mountain was Moses on when he received the 10 Commandments? Mount Sinai. Yeah, you have to say that one like that too. Mount Sinai. Anyways, 117. The Lord displays himself upon what mountain and how? Oh, I just said Mount Sinai. Well, how did the Lord display himself? The visuals. Do y'all remember? Smoke and fire and thunder and shaking and trumpets. Question 118. What reason did Moses tell the people that the Lord showed himself in this way for? That the Lord wanted to test them. And the Lord wanted the people to fear him so that they would not sin. 119. Chapter 32 outlines what tribe that was to be set apart for the priesthood. One particular tribe. The Levites. 120. Why were the Levites chosen? Because they did not participate in the worship of the golden cow and they raised their hand and said, I will be on the Lord's side. How many Israelites died because the people worshiped the golden cow? 3,000 Israelites died. Well, who killed them? The tribe of Levi. God imparted what into those who he chose to build the instruments for the tabernacle, remember? He imparted wisdom and craftsmanship. 124. God was teaching them to come before him with what kind of a sacrifice? A blood sacrifice, an innocent and unblemished lamb. 125. Where is the first mention of a sacrifice like this? Well, in Genesis, when Adam and Eve sinned, God took an innocent animal and used the skins of that animal to cover their nakedness. And the last question here, although I do have a bonus question for you, but the last question. This sacrifice is a type and shadow of what or who? This blood sacrifice is a type and shadow of Jesus, the blood sacrifice for us, the innocent lamb. Bonus question. According to the book of Enoch, how many angels descended on Mount Hermon and made a pact to take the daughters of man? How many? 200. Number 2. What were those angels called in the book of Enoch? Watchers. And number 3, last question. According to the book of Jasher, Abraham's father was what? A chief in Pharaoh's army and an idol builder. So there's that. There is your semester final exam. I hope you did great. I hope you learned a lot. We have went through the book of Genesis and Exodus. So this next episode, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I got a little surprise for you. I hope. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next episode.